Oh boy, we got a special one for you tonight on the art of Warcry. So welcome, come sit in. Let's learn how to prep and break down a tournament with four people who have mild concussions. Probably trying to explain this to you. I am unfortunately your host again tonight. That was a mistake by everybody else because prior to this, I was thinking about the names of Christopher Columbus's boats. Why they let me do this is beyond me. But we are here tonight, joined with the great Kyle Knapp, Great White Nope. We're joined with Mike Sansom, Armor Enthusiast 7, the seventh of his kind, and Peter M, the Saint 16. Peter M might be his handle because the Saint 16 is not in parentheses, so I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
Learn the nomenclature, Pete.
Right, right. And myself,
for 11 episodes now. Why change?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you just double down at this point.
It's just part of the syntax lore.
Yeah,
Classic 3H1C syntax lore.
Right, for sure. We're going to have a
Good
canon
stuff.
and everything. And of course, I'm your host, Robert Viscomi, also known as the Girth Demon. So it just never gets easier, huh? We're going to start up here.
Sure.
The first thing I want to ask you guys is please hit that like and subscribe button. Ring that bell.
Please.
Tell your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents. Tell them all. Tell the guy that you cursed off the other day while driving. Tell them. Let them know that we're going to help them prep for a tournament. But first, let's get into like what we're doing for some hobbies here. We're going to go up top with Kyle. What are we doing?
All right, keeping it simple. Look, I'm so close to being done with Curse City. I've got 6 more of the heroes and I'm done. That box has like 50, 60 models in it. I just like so much detail. Just want to crank it out, get it done. I got the Soulbound book to play the role-playing game with it. So trying to get the models done for that for my essentially D&D night. So I'm excited for it, but off to Mike.
Oh, thanks, Kyle.
Oh,
Okay,
shit, I
right.
can't get it.
Nice, got it the wrong way. Perfect.
That's solid.
Oh, got him.
I have been not keeping it simple. I've got a billion projects on top of my $250 million that were going on before. I got the ruined city of Gondor Osgiliath set recently. I've been looking to try to build a board with that stuff just because it's such cool terrain.
Look at Pete interested.
Yeah, Pete just,
Lord of the Rings, dude.
Pete spiced him up.
Pete smelled the air for a minute. He's like, oh.
On top of that, I've been working on a really fun conversion project where I'm trying to put together a Dynasty Warriors warband, trying to make proxies right now for all of the Wake, not all of them, but a bunch of Wake characters. So really, just it is a labor of love, just hunting for the perfect bits, and it's just fun. I love doing it. But here, let me try to get the direction right. Pete, damn it, Pete, what have you been up to?
Put the controls on inverted.
Thinking what Rob said there. I'm just picturing like going down the highway and like, you listen to 3H1C. Chef, man, you should get on that. Yeah,
that's what I do in my road rage. Like some guy cuts me off, I go, "Hey, you should be listening to how to prep a tournament, you idiot."
But as far as prepping stuff, I'm going back to Ogres because Bethany and Finn got me the Blood Pelt Hunter for Father's Day, which was delightful surprise. So I got more Ogres I got to paint up because I got some ideas, but that's pretty much really simple, not overly complicated. I'm slightly burned out from getting that last warband done for the last Jersey tournament, so I'm just like I'm recouping a little bit, but we'll get to it.
He's like, I just won, no big deal, whatever. Just recouping from my glorious victory.
Something like that.
Sleeping on the award and
And Rob.
Yeah. It's hot orc by summer over here, so we're just painting up some more Ard boys, the new ones, not the stupid squatty potty ones. And then we're getting some Rekkas painted up, some weird brute Rekkas, and we're just kind of just going through it, just kind of just enjoying it, trying to find pieces that I love. So like I'll paint up a couple things, put them down, come back to them. Just kind of, I feel like you guys are so much more busier and productive with the hobby lifestyle. I did find my old hobby cutting tools, and I want to share with everybody. If this looks like
it's how bad it is.
This is for cutting models or fingers, and
Rob,
yeah,
Rob
that's
doesn't
how
have
bad I
hobby
am.
tools. He has a garage, and he just says, "Which tool can I use?"
Where's
for
that
what I need?"
bandsaw? Where's the
I
bandsaw?
may or may not have my garage blanketed off with sheets of plastic. So I mean, hey, listen, sometimes glue sprays a lot, but nah, we're just going through and painting some orcs. I'm having a good time. I just love painting them. I don't know what it is about it. I just like the armor. I like the
It just
texture.
feels like home. It
just feels like home. I feel safe when I'm doing it. Whether it's gut rippers, if it's iron
Shirtless,
jaws,
muscly men makes sense.
yeah, green muscly men. I mean, sign me up. That's where I'm living. It's hot Orc Boy summer, and it's going to be soon to be Orktober.
It's coming
It's around
up.
the corner. It's around the corner. June's almost done. It's crazy.
I wonder if Warren's gonna do a little fun thing for it again. I hope he does.
First
He
thing
was a lot of fun for Orktober. Shout out to Dayton Warcry Club, Warren. Him and I would just be posting pictures of orcs all of October.
I posted
just yelling
two.
about
I
it.
posted 2 pictures of orcs that were done beforehand.
They were like hidden off to the side behind like a Mountain Dew can. You're like, check out my orc, and it's like it's like a third of the model.
Like, I used the reflection off of the green Mountain Dew to make it look like my plastic was painted.
Well, we gotta get through.
If you don't have a light box,
we gotta get through.
Have you ever painted an orc,
first
by the
in
way?
Seraphon September, right? Is that
Seraphon September? Kyle, have you ever painted an orc?
I have painted an orc. Yeah.
Do they make orc zombies? I didn't realize.
No, the Christmas orc. Oh, the rock goth. I painted him. And I actually did a whole thing where I designed a giant jukebox he's standing on. You press the button, and it does the song that they released. So I made a Christmas ornament out of it. It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. All right, Rob, that blew up in your face.
Kyle painted an orc. We're good, I guess. I know.
Kyle, you could just say yes next time.
Yeah, that was real fucking dick. God.
I feel pretty relaxed right now.
God, it was past 5 minutes. We're safe.
10 minutes, Rob. Sorry, buddy.
Oh, is it 10 minutes? I already blew it. That was a real dick move, Kyle.
If you're hearing this, listen to it slower and see if that works.
Don't show me your blurred tools.
I'm gonna start holding your terrain that's in my garage.
Hey, what do we want to talk about tonight besides Rob's blurred tools, guys?
Oh man, this is just never gonna go my way. We have an awesome tournament coming up in the United States in August, I believe. What was it? 29th. Thank you. It's going to be down in Washington, D.C. It is NOVA. We went last year. 3 of us went last year. Kyle, Peter, and myself before we were 3H1C. And it was a great tournament hosted and TO'd by the lovely Justin Smith. Great dude. You can find him on Discord. We're going to put a link down below so you can sign up if you're interested in going. It's on a Thursday for the GT. It is a great, very interesting mission.
Check out Tabletop and Beyond. Justin and Jason over there. They do a monthly Warcry segment. Dan Salty C's on it a lot, and hey, we've been on there before. Rob's on pretty regularly, but yeah, they run a good ship over there.
Yeah,
they also
great
do
people.
2 days of narrative. At least when I call that out, I know we're competitive focused, but the 2 days narrative they do has all this lore attached to it. Really, really awesome. That's where I got that last year. Playing the narrative event is pretty really
pointing
fun.
to.
The giant golden shaft up there.
Rob, don't pretend like you had no idea what he was pointing to.
I had no idea what he was pointing to.
Out of nowhere. This is you see mine up here as well.
Yeah. So I got that last year.
This closet door from the narrative event last
year. Dude, seriously. I got this sheetrock wall from the narrative event yesterday.
You can see glowing in the light right up there.
It was the weirdest. They had drywall for prizes. It was unusual, but it was fun.
All right, let's go. Let's jump into it. I'm ready.
Open this back up. Let's get the back up.
All right.
Yeah, seriously. Links down below. Check it out. Sign up. Really awesome. There's still some tickets left. You got till August. We're running in TTS League. Preface this beforehand, guys. We are running in TTS League 4 out of the 5 missions to just give them a test to see what you guys want to play beforehand. Great way to learn. If you need to learn how to play, hit any of us up. We're all on there. We'll also link that in the bottom. So let's open this pack up. Let's get there.
And prefacing that too, it'd be good to talk about, like, even if you're not going to NOVA, right? Kind of the point of this talk is just our different approaches and how we're kind of looking. How do you look at missions and how do you kind of think through and problem solve with them?
Yeah.
It'll be a good time.
All right, it's enough, Pete, for the night. Go on. I'm just kidding, Pete. You're good. You're good. That was actually very important. This is all four of us vastly have different ideologies behind prepping and stuff for that. It's pretty sweet. Some of us stay up till 3 a.m. painting. Some of us huff rattle cans in the hallway in a hotel.
You make it sound like he sleeps.
That was a good sound, Mike. That was pretty accurate. That was
you
pretty
do it
accurate.
enough, you really get good at replicating it, like a lyrebird.
He's having flashbacks.
That was a recording.
Oh, all right. Who wants to read it up?
All right. I'll do it. Let me jump on this one to start us off here. So war bands, kind of the rules that we're looking at for this one. This is going to matter because any pack that you're looking at, right? If you're going to break it down and figure out what you're going to play, read the pack. I think it's super important. It's like the number one thing to do. Do it first. Do it early. But yeah, check out what the rules are. So for this one, some of the stipulations is pretty open. Most of the stuff, I'm not going to go over everything here. We'll just kind of touch on a couple of big points. But for the most part, it's pretty standard match play rules. The biggest ones I do want to point out for this specific one are monsters are not going to be allowed. Has become pretty common. Sorry, Kyle, your dirty demon can't come to play. The other thing I want to point out is we're using blessings for this tournament, but it's going to be locked. It's not going to be flexi bless. So going to be one bless wonder. Determine what your blessings are when you hand in your roster. Nothing else there, right? Yeah, pretty standard. Roster submission, nothing crazy here. This is important
for the love of the TO. Earlier and better, please submit it in there. The TO will take a look. If there's a mistake in your list, they can get back to you. Don't make him wait to the last minute. Don't make him wait to the day of. He's a very nice guy. Help him. He puts a lot of time and effort. Let's make his life a little easier. Get it in on time.
Yeah, be a courteous participant.
Be a hero.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. I kind of like the sound of that.
Ooh, I don't think you want to be a chef. I think you want to be a hero.
So for this one, this Peter and I think have probably the most relevance here for model rules because we do a lot of conversions. We do a lot of proxying, making sure you know what is allowed at the tournament. Super important because if you stay up all night painting your models and you're converted something really lovely and they're not taking conversions well, you might as well have just slept because you're not going to be able to play with that. So making sure all the models that you're bringing are going to be allowed to play and emailing the TO about that. Usually TOs are really Warcry in particular is typically nice and flexible unless you're going to like a GW event like Warhammer World or something like that. I think they're usually proxies are okay, but not necessarily conversions that are using non-GW bits. I believe their recent policy is you have to use all GW stuff. It used to be like you had a little bit of flexibility, but I think you can still do some stuff on the bases. Stuff that's GW or stuff that you've like molded and sculpted yourself is fine. Make sure they're painted appropriately. They're different standards for painting a lot of the time. Or if you're just coming to play, it's your first tournament ever, and you're like, I just really want to try this game. Email the TO and say, hey, maybe I didn't get my models painted. Am I still allowed to play? Pretty please. And maybe they'll say yes. But always try to have them painted. Just makes it more fun for everybody, I think.
You forgot the most important rule on here: no square bases, because we know
I don't want to see any
all
of
the
that.
models come with square bases. So
I don't want to see any of that.
No.
Who wants to run through these?
I'll run through them. Why not? So the second rule down, basically, there's no aftermath sequence. If you play narrative, it's not narrative, so don't worry about it. Your team is your team every single game. But really, these bolded sections are the ones you got to pay attention to the most, right? Some missions, as we're going through them, we're going to call them out, have a primary. They may have a secondary. They may have a twist, but almost all of them also have a bonus VP section, right? So this is really important as you're going to a tournament, knowing not only what could you score in the primary, but what bonus stuff I can get, right? All the time, those bonus points is the difference between a first and second place, right? Someone has 39 points, you got 38. Well, you're in second, right? And that stinks because you didn't, kill the one model you needed to kill. Terrain.
That's
this
where
is
tournament
more
quests usually pop up, right? Like if they're using the tournament quest from the core book, that's usually where they'll stipulate that kind of stuff too. That's another version of bonus VP.
Yeah, there's no tournament quest, which is great because I always forgot my tournament quests. Now this is written on a piece of paper. I'm less likely to forget. I absolutely love that. Terrain, basically, terrain's there. It's expensive. Don't touch it. Leave it. You might knock it over. It's okay. Put it back. Mission selection, they pick that. Deployments outlined. Twists are outlined. Really, the biggest one here to note, and this is actually technically a change from, we'll say, the core book, double capture. This is something that came out, I want to say the Gnarlwood mission pack. I'm probably wrong. It's one of the mission packs. Fighters normally
Ferocious
can
Gnarlwood
sit.
2, I
First
think.
Gnarlwood. So normally fighters can sit
Second. Ferocious.
on 2 points if they were close enough to each other. Maybe you have an oblong base. Maybe they're just that close. Normally they'd be able to essentially count on both. But now they're stating in this, so for every single mission, your fighter only counts towards one objective, starting with the player that took the first activation. So that could be a really big deal because you could still sit on that middle point and say to your opponent, I could be on either one of these. But at some point, you have to choose, and you might not be able to choose first. So something to keep in mind as you're going through this. And scroll down.
Yeah. This one. This one's pretty, we can just skip over this one pretty much, but there's just kind of a specific interpretation for part of the terrain for this tournament. Again, just read it, make sure, otherwise assume that it's probably going to be core book. Email the TO if you got any questions on it. Pete, you want to talk about
GUR for terrain last year, just to give a heads up. Primarily GUR, a couple Red Harvest terrains. I don't recall any core, unlike Adepticon that was primarily
a lot of 3D printed stuff too, right?
There's going to be a good mix. Yeah, he had a lot of tables ready and set, ready to go. There's great terrain. It is like 1.5. It's a little bit more dense than usual, so you're not going to just be free floating or free shooting through it. That's something to keep in mind for that. But can I take the sportsmanship one? If you guys don't mind?
Yeah, go for it.
So sportsmanship, typically there's like who's the coolest person you played, and you're going to score it. That's not, which is Mike, because Mike's a blast to play.
Yeah.
And
or
if you're severely irritated by someone yelling "Have a pizza, kid," that's also Mike. Mike's awesome to play.
Yeah,
it's another. They're just basically Mike's getting shafted in a word here.
I didn't realize this. I'm gonna be writing to the TO about this for this tournament.
Yeah. Sportsmanship's not scored. It's assumed everyone's gonna be cool. If someone's not cool, come and talk to a TO. Here's the biggest thing. If there's ever a problem, and I know a lot of people sometimes feel like they don't want to have conflict or like they feel nervous by bringing it up. It's your money, it's your time too. If there's an issue, raise your hand, call TO. Justin's the most approachable dude in the world. Say, hey, can you make this measurement for us? Hey, I don't like the way he's playing or what he's saying to me. If someone's not being cool, call the TO and still continue to have a good time, because there's no reason to, 1, be a jerk, 2, cheat, or 3, get snuffed out of something that you were working hard to play for. So by all means, sportsmanship's important. Call the TO if you need anything.
Like, don't be scared. You don't know a rule, you're unsure about a rule. It's learning time for all of us. We can't memorize the 90,000 pages and about the 37 FAQs they give us every year. So
I've been playing -3 with Treasure for the past year. So I mean, I'm just trying to give a handicap out.
Rob had his own little FAQ that popped up. He got a special errata just for him.
Yeah. Rob's model's -3.
Pete, you want to talk about the what this tournament looks like? How this one's different?
This is the coolest part.
It really is.
Yeah, Pete, go.
Right, so we got arena, brackets, mission scoring, and hobby scoring. I actually haven't read through this part yet. So
okay.
I'm sick. Well, a chance to learn with everybody.
Right, right. So talking about arenas, there'll be 4 arenas with 8 players in each. So basically they did this at NOVA last year, right? So you have your bubbles, and everybody starts out in a bubble. And that's for the first 3 games.
Yep.
And then the top of that bubble gets to go to the big boys table to finish out the last 2 rounds. Now there's at least they did this last year. You can still score in your bubbles and your brackets and everything. So it's nice and layered, where just because you're not at the top table doesn't mean you're not winning in some form or fashion. Everybody's kind of fighting over their bracket at that point. So it's kind of an interesting way of shuffling people and kind of figuring out who's the who's the guys that have been planning for 4 months for this tournament and showing up, and the guys that are just kind of showing up with the one box going, hey, I'm just here to throw some dice and have a good time, right? So it kind of sorts everybody out after round 3, and that's because that's another thing to keep in mind too, because a lot of tournaments you're looking at 4 rounds, where some of the bigger tournaments like this one in case is 5, right? And an extra match can make a really big difference in how things are scored. So we talked about the brackets, mission scoring.
Before you go to the scoring, one thing I want to note here, the reason those kind of small bubbles matter, by the way, is so you're going to come to this tournament. You don't want to go alone. You want to bring 2 of your friends with you. Make yourselves a team, because the TO will put you in different bubbles. So you're not stuck playing, Bob, that you play every single Friday. They'll be put into a different bubble, and you have a good time with a bunch of people you haven't played before. So keep that in mind going into this. Make a team, tell the TO. That way you're going to have to, make a really, really good time for yourself.
We had a situation where that would have been really helpful. We went up to Dan Salty's first tournament ever, and one of the guys that we went up there with only played people that we drove there from Madison with. He literally did not play a single new person. He won. He beat all of the people that he played, but only played Madison people. The other thing, I don't know if Pete, you explicitly said it, but like with those brackets too, everybody who finishes first in the pool goes into their own bracket after pool play. Everybody who finishes second in their pool goes and plays each other in another bracket. So every single layer all the way down, you get paired after those first 3 games, and you're basically playing to kind of win a mini tournament at that point. It's a 2-game tournament, win 2 games, and you get, I'm pretty sure Justin does prizes for all of them too. It's so that like, even if you're not winning the whole thing, you have something to play for, and at that point, hopefully you're sorted into a relatively similar skill level and warband power level for your warband and stuff like that, so that you can have some really good competitive games against people that you can have a fun time with. So really innovative and clever idea from Justin.
Right. Yeah, and it worked out really well last year, because there was a lot of really positive feedback from people that participated in the tournament. I think there was a lot of confusion from outside the people that played the tournament, but to be perfectly honest, it was immensely positive and felt really good at the event. So I'm glad he's sticking with that, to be honest, because it's kind of unique. You don't see that at a lot of tournaments, and I think it's kind of cool. Now, the mission scoring is going to be a little bit different too. So based on how you score each mission is going to be worth a certain amount of victory points that go for how you're ending up in your bubble, right? So we'll kind of talk about that more as we break it down. And then there's hobby scoring, which I like. I like when it says hobby scoring, because again, Mike and I love converting, and that should be something that it's taken into play when you're looking at warbands going like, that is different, that is awesome. I mean, like Kyle at Adepticon for the narrative, having those Vulcan Flame Seekers ocean style with those sea bases, just phenomenal stuff, right? So it's cool. People get to kind of bring out the best, whether they're setting up displays or whatever. But yeah, it's fun. So something to keep in mind there. Get wacky with it as far as either painting, converting, display boards, what have you, right? There's multiple ways for you to succeed in this type of a tournament.
And most of the time, like most tournaments do have some capacity of like best painted or hobby, like something that is the artistic side of it for your warband, for your self-expression, right? This one in particular, though, one thing of note, some tournaments do this. This one is going to do it. Is there's going to be kind of a best overall, it looks like, so best in GUR. So that's probably going to be a combination of your scoring for the rounds and then also your hobby score on top of that. So it is going to contribute to what else is going on with it. So again, just something to know when you're going into it. Read everything about it, because there might be additional things that who doesn't want to win a prize, right? If you didn't win a prize because you didn't realize you could have played a little harder or painted a little bit more on one model, it's a cool way to be able to participate and not necessarily just trying to win a tournament every single time.
Right, absolutely.
All right, let's check out these missions. Let's see. This is the sauce. What people came for.
So the first one here. This is going to be the first one that everybody's playing. Rising Dread. This was a Gnarl, or which one was this one, Rob?
Rumble Pack mission, and it's one of the good ones too. It was taken and adapted by the Salty Sea, and he adapted it to change the deployments and give a secondary in it on top of what was happening. Sorry, you continue from there.
No. I appreciate it. It's I always like knowing kind of how there's so many community missions these days, and it's always cool to like learn about like the evolution of them, like who's got their hands on it, how it's changed, and like seeing what's inspired the people. Yeah. So this one, I think all of the missions in this battle pack are going to be 4 rounds, pretty standard. But in this one, we'll look at the thing up here. So there's going to be 4 objectives, those little black stars on the map here. The beginning of each battle round, you're going to score a number of victory points equal to the number of the current battle round for each objective shown on the map that you control. So if I control 2 objectives in the first battle round, then I'm going to score 1 point for each of those objectives, because it's going to be battle round number 1. Each of those will be worth 2 in the second round, 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, and you'll score multiple. So if you control all 4 objectives in the fourth battle round, that's 16 points, I think. So really scales up big time in the later rounds for sure. And then after the second round, players are going to place a treasure token in the center of the battlefield. Each going to place one within 3 inches of the first token. Beginning with the player who did not have the priority for the initiative roll. And if you control one of those treasures at the end of the game, you're going to get 2 points for that as well. So another way of kind of, being able to kind of clip up your points a little bit, and then might shuffle around where you end up. This one has a couple of different bonus missions in it. There's one that you're going to get as soon as you do it. If you kill the enemy leader, you get a bonus point. Nice and fun. And at the end of the game, if you hold all of the treasures, you get a bonus.
End of the round. Any of the rounds, if you hold all the treasures. Yeah.
Yep. Right. Yep. Sorry. Good catch. Thank you. No,
it's once per game though. So like you can't just sit there and stack them, but it's also open to everybody. So even though round 3 I held all the treasures, then at end of round 4 you held all the treasures, we're both going to get the 2 VP. So that way it's not like I can just get 4 VP for just hoarding treasure.
Yeah, it does. So the end of the round is when you can score it, but it is something, both of these you can only score once over obviously. Well, actually might be a good question for the TO. If I kill the leader and they get resurrected, does that give me an extra bonus point? I suspect I know the answer to that, but it is, this is the reason to read through it and go, let's figure out if there's weird interactions that could potentially skew the way that you play versus with your warband or with your opponent's warband.
Currency causing problems.
Right. So here you can see the table. These are potentially subject to change still, but this is the VP difference and how the scoring is going to work. So as Peter was kind of talking about before, a tie is going to be, there's going to be 20 points total from every single game. No matter what, there's going to be 20 points allocated. It's just a matter of the distribution of those 20 points between you and your opponent. So if it's a tie, 0 difference in VP at the end of the game, it's going to be 10-10. You can see the granularity of this. So as the score gets further and further away and becomes less close of a game, you're going to score more victory points. And so these numbers might change as far as the VP difference, but the general concept is the same as last year. And again, so basically read this as the more points you score over your opponent, like the bigger your win differences, the more you're going to score for tournament points, if that makes sense. So win big, win hard, win long, win all forever. So that's what you're going for.
It also means fights at the end, right? Because every single point you can get, it's an extra point you have towards your individual bracket. It's an extra point you have to the GER champion. So don't give up. You're down a little bit. If you can close that gap even by 1 or 2 points, that's an extra point for yourself. Only can help you in future rounds.
For sure. Yeah. Scratch and claw tournaments, every point matters.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we're going to kind of talk about like, what are the things that you're going to be looking for in the battle pack, essentially? So, and then not necessarily trying to explicitly tie it just to this pack, but we're going to use this one as an example to show you how we kind of think about when we're looking at a pack, what we're looking for when we see the pack. So first thing I look at when I see this mission, understanding what the scoring is, right? So it's going to be important controlling objectives in this. It's also going to be important holding some treasures after the second round. So immediately what stands out to me here is I see that the shield is on the round as the only deployment that's on the board round 1. Super important to probably have a lot of bodies in my shield if it's objective control. There's 4 objectives. It's probably going to be hard for a lot of warbands to bring a 4 model deployment because what's the minimum you have to have for that? 10. You have to have at least 10 models in your warband to at least have 1 4 model deployment. So having 4, if possible, is going to be great. 3, definitely good. 2, you're going to be in rough shape to start this mission. So yeah, definitely something to consider.
So like, this is the fun part too, like to actually give you like my counterpoint to this mission.
Mhm.
So the first time I actually played this mission was Atlantic City Open, and I played a 6-man warband. I was playing Quester's Soulsworn, and I actually won this mission. And something to note here is, yeah, having numbers controlling objectives is great, but remember the early turns don't matter as much as the late turns, right? I
Right.
control all 4 points on turn 1, and it's equal to 1 of the points on turn 4,
Mhm.
right? So don't go in here and say, "Oh man, I'm only bringing 2 models." Like, yeah, let them get 3 objectives turn 1. Who cares? You're going to go in there, you're going to start smashing faces, get them off the points. They're not going to be able to contest it later. You can make it up in later rounds. But to Mike's point, though, numbers still matter a little bit more in this mission, in my
Mhm.
opinion, because the treasures also spawn, right? So, like, you have all these points, and the points definitely are the primary. But when you have 3 treasures spawning, and the closest one you got to the middle is that shields, and you know one's going to spawn directly in the middle, I want someone to get on objective, possibly pick up that treasure. But don't be afraid to say, hey, this mission might be a little weaker for me. I don't have quite as many numbers, but
Mhm.
hey, look, I don't need numbers. I'm just going to kill them and just take the points later. That's fine. Let's have a plan.
With
So-
that too, yeah, and I think I agree, Kyle, on the it's not necessarily important to capture the objectives in round 1, but one thing that you're also going to be wanting to try to do in a mission, any objective mission, is trying to, at worst, try to tie. Don't let your opponent get it, because these are going to be worth more points later. The earlier you cap them, the better, because your opponent has to beat you on that objective later. At worst, if you defensively thinking about it, like if I can stop my opponent from taking it, just throwing one guy to tie them so they don't take it for free, essentially helps me later, because if I want to take that one, I don't have to beat them. I only have to beat them, the one time, and then I can kind of keep it for later. So yeah, it just can really cascade into future rounds and how the scoring works and stuff like that.
Something I'll note with this too is these style of missions, if you're not used to playing them, it's very easy to get spread too thin early game. And then you realize that your models just are dropping way too fast. And like Kyle said, suddenly round 4, when it really matters, you're like, I scored great early game, but then I spread too thin. It's very easy for it to get away from you. So these kind of escalation style games, you really have to be thinking about that. To Mike's point too, yeah, if you play too safe though, then suddenly it's like they get that early lead and then you can't catch them. So it's a real balance, but yeah, be careful not to spread too thin too early.
It's worth noting the deployments on this, and this goes to like the several fold objective of what we want to do is talk about how to prep and break down a tourney. So coming from my point of view, there's a couple things of interest of where I'm planning already to go. When I'm looking at deployments for myself personally, I'm not saying, okay, yes, absolutely, I need a lot in the shield, or I see shield X out of whatever missions. Shield is definitely easy, close to get to the far east point that we're looking at, but we're also being reinforced by hammers, so we know we can arrive and get that and take that back. Shield can go take South Point, but South Point's also going to be close to their dagger coming in, as is my North Point to their dagger. So maybe I hold strong and have to wither their shield if they want to come and fight, or I have to weather their dagger if they're going to become getting reinforced. So thinking about what terms I want to have my engagement on, because at the end of round 2 is where I'm going to have treasures drop. And then one treasure I'm going to be placing after the one in the middle, 3 inches. 3 inches from the center is going to overlap with the 5-inch. So it's going to be 3 off that center, that objective. I'm going to be able to put it on an objective I control. So I can control an objective and essentially a treasure, lining myself up to engage easier. So now I'm thinking, how can I hop and get 2 treasures, take 2 treasures, and slowly control 2 points out of the game, and then I can walk away with a win that way. I'm not always looking to flatten and floor. And I think that goes to building to the pack, right? If you have a deployment of 4 and shield, you're most likely going to jump ahead early. But the other times of like, how are you playing? If you're not playing horde, you're not building bodies, you don't like doing that, you like being a real man, then maybe you're looking to alpha pin. Maybe you're running a cavalry piece. Maybe you're running a harbinger that's going to bonus move and just stop their deployment, take a couple hits. They fall behind on points and the ability to control, and you set yourself up the ability to regroup the next turn. So you have to look at how and what style you want to play, and then build to the pack accordingly from there. Then you build to your deployments. It's at least how I run it, in my perspective on that. And if you're building to maximize points then you have to be, that's even harder. You have to definitely be very selective of what you're doing and being conscious for every mission. I don't think in this particular pack, as we'll see, because there's a diversity of missions, especially when you get to round 4 and 5. It's not quite as 4 is not quite as objective heavy. We'll get there later. At least from what I see, that's how I would approach this, is being able to set myself up for the treasures incoming and being able to fight and hold 2 points at those ends. Because Kyle's right. Like, so what? I control 4 points turn 1, then he removes me off. Hammer's going to have a hard time catching up to anything. Dagger's going to want to go to the north or south point, depending on where you're from, and Hammer's reinforcing the back. So it's going to be, it's kind of like predictable movement, depending on what they're running. If you have cavalry, you have a speed piece, loon boss, Varangard, anything like that, you can be a little bit more non-anticipatory in your movements, so people can't really gauge where you're going to go, or you can hop between them. Since you can't double cap, you don't have to worry about that. There's no monsters.
To build on your point too, Rob, here, right? A lot of treasure missions take an action to pick up a treasure. This mission does not state that, meaning it follows normal treasure rules. So to your point on movement is so key in this mission. And ironically enough, abilities are going to matter a ton more. So like something silly, generic ability, everyone's got it, inspiring presence, is actually powerful on this mission because your leader can go to the center, move, grab that objective, tell another guy to go, they move and grab an objective. You got treasures, not objectives. Grab the 2 treasures before your opponent even gets to go, right? So then you got to be thinking too, I'm going into the second round, right? I might want to save my ability dice just to get that triple or just to get initiative, because treasures are a lot easier to pick up, which normally in these kind of missions, treasures a bane to elite warbands because you have to take an action. And they only have so many, right? But when it's just a part of a move, it's not that big of a deal anymore.
The hyper aggro build is to, and again, you got to think of it in the scope of the pack. It's great for this mission, might not be great for others. But if we love that idea, Kyle, and we're gonna go dice into inspiring presence, let's start bringing a wild dice blessing for this mission. Let's go 40 points. We're bringing an extra cube, baby.
But
steal them things.
That, though, there's something to keep in mind there too. Is like, unless you got a really sweet play in round 1, you might really want to think about saving that wild die for round 2, because initiative might be very important depending on how you guys place your pieces.
2 wild dice blessings. I hear you, Pete. I get where you're coming from.
Oh no! If I got trip 6s, I'm making the quad 6 turn 1. I have to. It's just, I feel like it's a law, but I don't know.
I agree. No, anytime I don't know how many people play euchre, but there's a rule in euchre, and if you don't play euchre, this will be the most esoteric and irrelevant statement ever. But it's if you,
what is euchre?
Okay. Pete, you're from Pennsylvania, and it's out there. Hey, it's a card game, and I'm going to say it, and the people that get it, I'm not going to explain it, but there's a rule, and it says you turn down a bower, you lose for an hour. It's essentially a powerful piece in the game. It's a powerful card. But yeah, anytime I have a quad turn 1 that I can go into, I just like, man, if I turn it down, I'm never getting one ever again is how it feels. So yeah, I know I understand that feeling well, Kyle.
But it shows like the different philosophies around, like, do I want numbers to get objectives and pick up treasure? Do I want to focus on just killing people off points and then just worrying about the objectives later? Meaning you could still bring the type of team you want. And this is only mission 1, right? So you have to look at, what does this mission favor? And what do I want to bring as a whole to the entire pack? And you might say, I personally just go out there. Maybe this is you. You might say, hey, treasures, objectives, I feel like I need horde. Great. And then we're going to get to, I think it's round 4, and you're going to be like, I don't know if I should have brought horde anymore. So
what's this one? KO, right? KO's fight for profit. It got nerfed, but there's treasures and objectives in this mission. Fight for profit kind of goes wild, maybe.
True.
But again, in the first, like Rob said, right, as we get to later, the first bracket mission that we're getting into, as soon as you get split out of your pool, there's no objectives and maybe there's no treasures. I don't know how KO is going to do in that mission when my one trick isn't doing my one trick very well.
Right. So like you right off the rip, like to add on and finalize that stamp seal, numbers definitely good here. Speed, very good here. Speed is very important here. If you have all move 3 guys, how you moving them? Are you wogging them in? Are you coordinated striking them in? Are you going to be spicy and get that pyre geist kill and triple them in on points? Heck yeah. Watch our
Let that
videos.
fire, baby.
Oh, my last thought on this is thank you, Salty, for making this better for my soul sworn. They could be redeemed if I have to play this mission again. That free move lets me get free treasure. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
It is, but the other Rob, you said speed, you said numbers, as Kyle also indicated. Kill is also good in this, so it's about figuring out what your warband is going to do, figuring out how to maximize each mission and how your warband, whether you build up or build down, right? You build from the pack into a warband, or you build from a warband into the pack. Figuring out what your warband. Whoa, you warband?
My
What your warband's gonna do on this mission?
My little warband.
All right, let's go to the next mission. Unless
Let's
Pete,
do
you have
it.
anything?
Pete,
No,
yeah.
no, I think they summed it up pretty good there.
Mission
Yeah,
two.
Did you even speak on this,
Really-
Pete?
You did. You did.
Is this one you, Pete?
Yeah, this is me.
Get it.
So let's go down to the and we're not gonna overly hype on the points because we already talked about that.
Cool.
Bonus victory points, right? Again, we got immediate kill leader, and then battle ends more kills by treasure carriers, which is a really fascinating little.
I talked to the TO about
I
this
love
one
that
just
one.
to help you out with this because the lack of proper English on this one. Sorry, Justin. It's basically your treasure carriers killing people, and then you got to track that independently
In real life.
In real life, right? On a different table. No, for sure though. That's all that means, Pete. I'm not sure if you. I talked to Justin. I was a little confused myself. Basically,
Yeah,
you're
that's
doing
what I
treasure
thought.
kills, which is wild because that's like a big risk, right? Like, but that's super cool.
Mm-hmm. I love it because I love it when roles push you into uncomfortable places, and this is definitely one. Yeah, because you're going to see like when the big old Titan piece picks up a treasure and goes, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you want to engage it with a ghoul, and the ghoul's like, I'm going to tie him up, and then he gets 2 points because he killed the ghoul. You're like,
maybe.
Right. Ghoul net. Sorry, Peter, continue.
So going back to this, right? So before the battle, you're placing 3 objectives. So pretty much when you're looking at the board, right, there's going to be 3 objectives that each contain 2 treasures. So I believe you got to use an action to pull the treasure, dig it up, right? Now, did he say here if it's somebody that can't carry treasure, it immediately drops? So something to keep in mind with this, because I've been to tournaments where people can pull some real shenanigans when it comes to treasure. If you can carry treasure, you can't drop it in this mission. That's a big deal. So you can't piggyback it to your cheap chaff and be like, here, take this somewhere safe.
You can, however, loot twice, only carry 1, and so the other gets immediately dropped. You drop it near your boy, and your boy scurries off double time.
Or you loot it with a wolf or something, right? And drops it twice.
My billionaire.
The other weird thing with that is it's only the fighter that pulls it out that cannot drop it. If you pull it out, I kill you, I pick it up, I can drop it now. The way that it's written, it's the same with all those. It gets kind of funky, kind of weird. I don't know if that was ever the intent, but it is. The rules is written and typically how these kind of weird.
I'm sure Justin will fix that. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be you can't drop it at all.
Yeah.
Right. So something to keep in mind there, though, because if you've been to tournaments before where you're like, well, I'll throw this over here. No, I can't do it this time. None of that.
Yeah, spend 2 actions.
Here you go, boss. A little quiv.
Right. So after the second loot action, the objective is gone, right? It's disappearing. So there's a possibility of 6 total treasures, right? Now, something to keep in mind here at the end of the battle rounds, 1 through 3, you score a point at the end of each round for carrying a treasure. So that's numero uno of scoring, right? At the end of round 4, you're going to score 3 points for carrying that treasure. So again, emphasis on end of the game. Where's that treasure? You should be holding some of it, because if you're not, you're in trouble. But again, keep in mind there is those carrying those treasure around, get a kill, get a little extra something to keep in mind there. And then obviously 4 battle rounds. So let's go up to the map here.
It's wrong way. Spoiler.
Let's go down.
And Pete's done.
Game over, Pete.
So something to keep in mind, right? I'm gonna just keep talking. So mission 1,
correct.
Hammer.
Rob does it.
Right. Hammer was at a real disadvantage match 1, right? Mission 2, hammer is very important because hammer's just getting right in there. Hammer's the only thing starting on the board. So again, talking about planning out for the entirety of the tournament, you look at mission 1, you're like, hammer's not that important. Well, hammer's going to keep appearing here throughout this mission pack, so something to keep in mind.
Spoilers! All 3 of them show up in every mission.
Right.
Except the one with the crowbar.
So then something to keep in mind too is the dagger and shield are pretty much coming into almost combat range with each other round 2. So you best be ready for a scuffle because it's gonna affect things here. So kind of that as the base, right? Who wants to poke a little extra info first?
Top down. I'll start. Go down to Mike. So first thing I want to note here, like you talked about, they're coming into battle on round 2. I also want to note both daggers essentially spawn right on top of the treasure.
Yeah.
Because that treasure has a 1-inch aura. So sure, it's 3 over and 3 up, but your deployment is 3 from that edge, right on that spot. Meaning you can go right to the treasure, that little 1-inch overlap. You can get 2 smaller models there, which is important, meaning because you don't have to move and then grab it. You could stand there, and to Rob's point earlier, you can go, I'm going to loot. Turn 1, pop both of those treasures out, and you're kind of good to go there, right? But if you notice, your dagger kind of spawns on it. His dagger spawns on it. But then you look at the middle, and you're trying to think, to Pete's point, that hammer becomes more important. But also to come to mind is not only how many people are in the group, but when do they go? So I've seen a lot of people go like, I'm going to go first on hammer. I'm fast. I got this elf. I'm going to run to the middle, loots the point, gets the treasure. And the other hammer looks with his like ogre is like, what are you doing? And just walks up and just claps that elf in the face and kills it on turn 1. And you're like, I
elf
should
crime.
not have moved into there, right? Or I've seen people just bring a big fat ogre, walk right up to the middle, stand on the treasure, not loot it, and say, if you want the treasure, you're going to have to engage me. Have fun with that, right? There's a lot of play in this mission that happens on turn 1 on deciding who goes first and where do they move, right? Oftentimes you'll see waiting games, you'll see the blocking on each other, you'll see the fighting in the middle. So you might want to think to your hammer, like in round 1, you're like, I want my big boys to come in shield and brawl early. Maybe you want them to come in on round 2 first. Maybe you want them to fight for that middle because it's the only objective you don't spawn on. But Mike, to you.
Pete, you're going to say something there?
Yeah, just talking about standing up on top of the objective. Just remember with the FAQ, if I remember correctly, you can't stand on top of treasure, correct? Right. But you can stand on top of objective.
The objective,
so,
right?
Right. So this mission gets really screwy.
Cross treasure. Still, you can still walk across treasure. You can't
just tend to move on it. So keep in mind, these are objectives. You haven't dug up the treasure yet. So to Kyle's point, you got a big giant base and you sit on the middle of it. Mike did this to me the first time we ever played each other.
Last year, I walked Monologue and I sat him right in the middle and I said, okay, I'm going to have these treasures now, Pete. What would you like to do with the rest of this game?
Because the biggest thing for especially newer players, right? Once you get engaged and you're holding a treasure, you can't disengage. So when you got a big old fat piece sitting on top of the objective, guess what? You just grab the treasure, you're in combat. You're in trouble. So you got to think about those questions, right? Because you might just be like, you know what? Maybe the middle isn't so important to me. Maybe I'm going somewhere else. And sometimes you're not going to know till you're facing your opponent who's got initiative, right? But something to keep in mind there. Not to take away from what you're about to say there, Mike.
No, for sure. No, it's good. It's good stuff. I thought of new things while you were talking. Two little things I want to throw about it. This one that immediately kind of come to my mind. Talking about standing on top of it. If I have a base that's bigger than 50 millimeters and I'm sitting on top of an objective, they cannot get within an inch to be able to pull treasures out. So I can completely block off an objective if I really want to with a 60 millimeter plus size base round. That is, I don't know the ovals. I don't know exactly how that one would work. It has to be bigger than a 90 by 50, 52. So there's some weird stuff in it, but there is the possibility of completely stopping anybody but one of your models, or your opponent doing this to you, from pulling anything out. So just a consideration, maybe that's part of the way that you want to play it. One thing that when I look at this mission, I really, the way I usually see this is there's 3 fights that are probably going to happen, and you get to kind of dictate really early. I can't remember if it was Kyle or Pete that said it, but you kind of get to dictate how and the terms of each of those fights. Shield kind of can usually check in the middle or check in its corner. You're usually not going corner to corner crossover. Sometimes you can, and you can build like that, throw somebody off. It's possible if you're bringing a move 10, move 12 model, you might be able to pull it off. Remember that terrain is going to be thing potentially too, so maybe that's when a flyer gets really important, where you want to have flexibility. But I look at this as oftentimes, how do I want to dictate these fights, because we're going to be fighting over these treasures. I want to usually trying to win 2 of these. You have to outperform your opponent to not get a tie on this one, although it's a little different because you score each round, but trying to get basically 4 treasures and then they're left with 2, or trying to score 3 and leaving 1 on the ground, that kind of stuff can help too. But do I want to basically try to split the middle and not be as fighty on one of those, or give up the middle and then maybe send my hammer to help my shield and my dagger in round 2, so that I say I think I can try to win these outside fights, to send more of my pieces over there. But then your opponent is also able to completely counter that and just go, well, I'll just take the middle and then I'll also send my outside pieces there. But you can really think about what you want to do with your individual pieces, and looking at what your matchups are, what is in their dagger, what is in your shield, and vice versa, seeing what those models are. What's going to be the easiest fight for you to win is something that really pops up in my head when I see this mission. Rob?
Yeah.
Unless you got... Sorry. Yeah. Do you have any other stuff?
I did, actually.
Okay. Sorry. I figured you jump in, you talk all the time. Comment down below if you're sick of Peter always interrupting us and just talking nonstop. Let us know how tired you are of it.
Something to keep in mind, right? Your opponent's dagger, because like Mike said, there's 3 fights going on the board. You're at a disadvantage going after your opponent's dagger because they start there, right? So you got to think about that. The one other note, that having a speed piece in your hammer can make a really big difference this match, because it allows you to change how the battlefield is going. Like there's been guys that, double move a Varangard from the middle and just sit it on top of your opponent's dagger spot and go like, well, here I am for round 2. There's ways to shake things up, and I'm not saying that's a good move or the right move, but having a speed piece starting out on the board allows you to really dictate that. So that's something to keep in mind too. But just understand, you're going to have an advantage in one corner and you're at a disadvantage in the other corner. So depending on how you build those groups, you have to have an answer for that, or at least a plan. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, it's good. It's all good. I think it's all very viable and flexible advice. So I know from the top setup of the hammer to right to sit in the middle of the objective with Domiton, which is a 40 millimeter base. What I did with him is I used this double to go 6 inches, and I ran directly up and sat on top of the objective. I forget if it was a double move or whatever it might be, vice versa. Sat right on top of it, and I said, okay, I ran up there and shot something. And I said, hey,
you'd be able to get there.
If you want to come and engage and loot, I have you locked down. I don't have to pick up the treasure. I just have to say, hey, if you want to pick this fight here, you're going to spend an action to say, okay, I'm just tied up with you now, because it has to be an inch from the center of the objective. So you can kind of pseudo trap people that way in setting up the fight how you want to preordain or dictate that. Granted, he's not the best of fighters, but if you take an anti-prime, you double move him, you put him right in the middle, then it's like, okay, come get your treasures. Otherwise, I'm going to get a free treasure, and then I'm going to go support elsewhere with my hammer. To everybody else's point of crossing up objectives, if their dagger is something that can beat your shield, or if vice versa, don't be afraid to call it quits and just go and go across and support somewhere else. The goal here is to have at least 4 treasures, right? We want to have 2 from middle, 2 from that, because with 3 it's a tie. So you want to have at least 4 treasures to get the win. And I think that's the big thing here. If you can kill a leader along the way, cool, kill a leader. If you can use your treasure boys to fight, cool. But big thing takeaway here: speed, but also stopping power. You're going to be brawling on condensed areas with very aggressive deployments. If your shield can't win it, run it. Don't sit there and force a fight on something you know he's going to screen you out, and then eventually just walk along that edge. And if you can't get there, then you just spent time wasted on pieces. Know when and how to pick your fights. Know that you can just run to the middle to support and clean up if they're already scruffing. Know that your dagger is going to get encroached on, and know that you have to react that way too. So it's how you're setting up. Is you're setting up for 3 points, or you're setting up to support a fight somewhere else in the center, and then kind of go from there. It's definitely what you guys said though: speed, stopping power here, which is kind of cool.
The one thing I want to build on, Rob, like you talked about, like having speed on your team, having stopping power. Like we talked about that first mission, we're like, oh, numbers could be favorable. We got a lot of objectives, you got a lot of treasure. Now we're in a mission that's pure treasure. There's no objectives, right? But you realize how close they're spawning, and everyone said it here. There's going to be 3 fights, so you're like, yeah, I brought numbers because like numbers is good on objectives. Then you get to this mission where you can't avoid the fights anymore. Suddenly, if you can't brawl, maybe that horde isn't as good as I thought it was going to be bringing into this mission, right? So it comes to, what is your build? Why did you build that way? And what's your plan for this mission? Am I planning to brawl? Am I planning just to run away with sheer amount of numbers? All of that matters.
To your point there, Kyle, right? If I'm bringing a horde, well, I need to be able to do damage. Maybe I start looking at hordes that do damage, like Royal Beast Flayers or Wilder Core, where I can just charge dogs and flat damage burn, right? Like there's ways to synergize that need with the playstyle, but you got to find it, right? Figure out what your needs are, and then figure out like how to make your list sing with those needs. The other part, Rob, just as you were talking about these points and stuff like that too, I just realized, I feel like, to me, the vibe I get off this particular mission is like points are kind of a little bit harder to come by. And also in the bonus victory points, only one person is getting the battle end more kills by treasure carriers. That could be super important. This might be a really important determining factor in a lot of games. So maybe I do want to take that a pretty maybe I want the biggest, beefiest guy, and that's going to be a big plan for me. Is okay, I need to just win this fight at one single fight, and then I can kind of trickle down from the other places on it. But yeah, just again, it's amazing the more you look at these, and it's so cool talking to you guys about it. Obviously here, and we talk a lot on the side, and other people as well, getting these perspectives on them, because there's so many different ways to approach it, and figuring out just it's a puzzle to solve, and there's so many different ways to solve it, which is so much fun. Why we love this.
You brought up like a dog digging up treasure is just thematic. I like it. So
you have to do that now. That's the rules. Somebody has to play Wilder Core just to dig them all up.
I found a bone.
Can't carry them, but
super relevant trick, because this is all about playing our best Warcry. We mentioned previously that before you loot or dig up 2 treasures, it's an objective. So objective things like Fight for Profit still work on there, that you start right on top of. How Scabic still works on there. Also, let's not forget about our Zandara babies, where you can have one grab a treasure and then the other stand by it, so they come engage you on the point. You can either get free attacks if they come into your objective territory, or if both of them loot, you can get free moves right after that, because there's no more objective. So knowing how to play with that, and knowing how to understand that there is a 3-inch regular objective and interact with that as it is pretty important too.
And that's dynamic in the game. Typically, it'll change, right? Like it is an objective for part of it, and then it is no longer an objective. So understanding how you may be able to control that pacing of when and where that actually occurs is super important, or could be super important depending on certain warbands and abilities that different people have.
Yeah, for sure.
Any more juice on this one? We squeezed rock dry.
Did we
the orange?
Did we throw out? This is another salty sea mission. That was a community mission. I want to give credit where credit's due. He pretty much took loot and pillage, called it Pillager's Loot, brilliant, and then just made it more incentive to actually pick up treasures. The previous iteration of it was it only counted at the end. So you literally just fought in scrums, and whoever won the scrums would just pick up treasures, and that was it. It was very less dynamic. This gives it. And then Justin's little bonus treasure carriers getting kills is kind of a nice little sweet touch too.
I'm excited to test that.
I do think like, hey, you start with a mega boss, you start with a gut lord or something in there in your dagger, and then all of a sudden it just picks up, and then it's just like, cool, come fight me, guys. Like I'm gonna get points.
I'll buy a beer for anybody whoever has the smallest model that wins that, whatever not figuratively small, but like the smallest points value. Vexmore doesn't count, but there's
Who's Vexmore?
If you can do it with a sub 100 point model, I'll buy you a beer at Nova.
Is Vexmore a good model? I don't.
Model's great, love it. I got it right here, not painted.
And as we learned the past couple of videos, treasures -2 move as a reminder. So
-2 move. For those
Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. It's -3. If you're running with treasures, are you even living? If you're running with treasures, are you getting? You're not getting those 2 points.
Yeah, you can't fly is actually big because
you cannot disengage either. Right, those are big things. Night Haunt, see you later. Pay those points to not fly.
Hundreds of Huanchi, Wildercore.
Next one.
Lightning Reed.
This is me.
There you go.
This is one of my personal favorite missions. This is from the Ferocious Gnarlwood 2. We played this a ton already in our TTS leagues. Sorry for anybody who's having to deal with this for like 3 months in a row. It is a really fun, dynamic mission, though, that produces a lot of variable outcomes. So we're going to start out from the top, not reading the VP difference battle points. We're just going to go straight up. There are 5 objectives, right? At the end of
a note with that though, Rob, though, it is another smaller, like the total points look like it's going to be smaller on this one. So those bonus victory points might matter again for this mission, right?
Yeah. Unless it's something goes out of hand and gets wildly out of control, it is usually a tight race because of the built-in twist, which I'm going to read. At the end of each battle round, each player scores 1 victory point for each of following. That is true. You control an objective. You control 2 or more objectives, and where you control more objectives than their opponent. Okay. Fighters cannot double cap. That's just part of this. We're going to get to that in a second after I break down my views on this and what I plan to do, or what I plan to, at least how I look at it. At the end of the battle round, each player determines the total wounds of enemy fighters that are taken down this battle. The player with the higher wound total scores 2 victory points. In layman's terms, at the end of each round, you're keeping a running total of everything that's dead. So you can do some math for my math boys that are good with quick math on the fly. If you have higher wounds dead total, not for the round, total, but it will check at the end of the round, you'll score 2 VP. Also, Res takes them out of the pool. Have fun with that. Thanks. After the initiative phase, each battle round, if one player has fewer victory points, that player that controls that objective, a player picks an objective, and if they control the objective, they get 1 additional victory point. Pretty sick. It's a kind of it's a twist catch-up mechanic. And when you see the map, I'll kind of break down how that comes into without being confusing on this.
For that one, you do have to pick one too. You cannot elect to not do it. So sometimes it might not be a catch-up mechanic, and it might be I'm giving you free points somewhere.
Right. It can be feels bad because somebody who's like lightning fast can just be like, oh, I'll take that point from you, thanks. Or I'm going to go fly and res there, so now you lose the 2 points and you lose the extra point. See you later.
Or over my dead body, and I just count as like 5 people because I'm 1 model.
Right. It will be necessary to pass on the body, Kyle. I knew what you were talking about, though. It's cool. There.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think you got the fact correctly. Anyway, bonus victory points, kill a leader. That's immediately scored. 1 VP. Sick. So, hey, they want to bring it again. Let's ask Justin if we could just keep killing that leader if you keep resing them. End of round, steal an objective from an opponent. This is awesome. And my personal recommendation. It's taken from Swamp Raid, although it's worth less VP. This can only happen once a game, so you can't just keep stealing and cycle through to get 2. Happens once a game, can happen for both people. Steal an objective from an opponent, grab 2 VP. That's huge. That's a big swing. And it's that way, like, oh, they got the kill, or they're going to get the kill for the total wounds. I'm going to try to steal a point and kind of even that out. There's a lot of decision making that comes down to this that I really enjoy. So again, control 1, control 2 or more, and control more objectives than their opponents. Total wounds each round. And then also we get to pick a point for special shinies, but your opponent can snatch that up from you. Scroll up and see the map. This is our first double deployment. Okay. So we see Hammer again. So that's count 2 for Hammer for my Sesame Street friends. Two Hammer Dammers.
I'm writing it down.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we have dagger on the side. Dagger is our first dagger feels right in the front, and shield. So the first thing that pops out. Do you want me to just jump in from my perspective, and then we'll work
Yeah.
our way bottom up? So the
Yep.
first thing that really pops in. I've played a lot of this mission, and I really love this mission. So like, give me a moment. I'll try to sum it up. You need speed
He
here.
has an erection.
What?
You remember that? Never mind. It's an Archer joke. It's an old one. Say, talking about how much you love it.
That was pretty okay. So we're gonna go and look. Deployments are all along the board edge. Round 2 for shield. Hammer again, straight up. Dagger all the way to the corner. You are fighting for the 3 centers that cannot be double capped. And I'm going to get to a cool trick with that. So we see speed is paramount again. Numbers help, sure, but if your numbers are small or they can't move fast, or they don't have a way to buff themselves to move faster, it's bad. WOG-like effects here also are awesome because you can ship one from hammer over to the middle and get dagger to come out a little bit faster. There's a couple different cool tricks you can do here that are really effective in what you need to do. And you're also going to be wanting to try and kill. So we also have, looking back real quick, we have our first is an objective treasure. Our second is a treasure kill. And our third is an objective kill. So we're perfectly balanced across these different mission packs, and we're blending them in. So now you do have to decide, how do you want to approach this with speed? Because if we steal a point, we also are going to grab 2 VP. So that's very important to think. You cannot double cap. So if you want to sit in the middle and go over my dead body with dispossessed, you have to count it towards the end of the mission. It's whoever took the first action will be on a point, and you have to pick a point. However,
that's actually an important distinction, Rob, too, that first action part, right? It's not who won initiative. It's not who lose
the first
who lost
action.
Initiative. Yeah, it's whoever went first. So you could win initiative and make your opponent go first, and then they will have to determine where they're counting on objectives first. It's just a weird interaction.
It's the first of its kind, so it's pretty unique. Another thing that I looked at that I tested out last night, I can mess in between 2 points, but I can only count for 1 point. So I can shut 2 points off, not have to cap the other, and my opponent can't cap it if they're all 14 or less. So I can kind of dictate the control of where I want to be and then deny them scoring. However, because there's a catch-up mechanic here, if you deny them scoring, they get to place the glittering butt fart, which is going to most likely be placed close to their shield because their shield can immediately reinforce it. I think it's a blast of a mission. It is tighter scoring, but it is super fun, and it's very nuanced and layered. It rewards speed, it rewards shooting, it rewards objective control. It's all across all bars. You could take what you want here and design for it and have success from anything. You just got to make sure you run your butt. Peter, go ahead.
Something that stands out to me with Lightning Ray too is it's a real scrum in the middle, right? Because even if your opponent grabs the edge objectives, you're sitting pretty in the middle. It can turn into a real brawl real quick depending on the opponents. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, dagger again. First time we're seeing the dagger out. Dagger is tucked away from everything.
Tippity tucks.
So something to keep in mind there is if your dagger is a bunch of slow units, they're not really seeing a whole lot till pretty much round 2, maybe round 3, depending. But something to keep in mind, they're a lot more handicapped in this one, where your shield's at least starting out on an objective pretty much.
Right.
But again, hammer's going to dictate a lot in this mission. So again, two missions now where hammer's early on making some very big impactful plays. Those are kind of the big things that stand out to me. It's interesting because yes, it's objective play, but there's a lot of killiness to the mission, which I think's a beautiful balance, to be perfectly honest. But you have to have answers to both, which sometimes is very hard to pull off. Because a lot of bodies doesn't always mean removing other people's. So at the same time, it's an objective game. So you got to be able to score objectives. And if you don't have enough models to do that, you're going to get behind, and then it's going to be very hard to catch up. So there's a lot of layers. I'm very excited about this one.
I'm sorry, just to round back on that too. for the stealing is the one added by Justin that is new to this mission. It gives a chance. So like, oh, I have fast horde. I'm going to take a lot of points. Well, if you spread out too thin and those elites get to that points, they're catching up quick with that. So there's like 1.5 catch up mechanics here. So you have to be aware where you allocate your resources and pick and hold ground really well. Because if you slip up and they take a point, then they get 3, and then they get the 2 points and the glittering. You're gonna watch it spiral out of control. So you have to be really careful about where you allocate here.
Mike.
Yeah, so Peter, as you were talking about the dagger, then it was played in TTS a whole bunch with this one. The thing that kind of is interesting to me here is, do I want a speedy dagger so that I can go and cap that top left objective potentially? Do I want to have a speedy thing with a big base so I can at least be not contesting, but I can have the option of top left and then that first middle left objective as well, if assuming I'm blue in this, right? Do I want to try to bake something that is both fast and large so that I can probably cap that top left round 1 potentially, or at least keep it contested so that nobody's capping on it, and then still be ready, set up for round 2 where we're probably going to start brawling. We're probably going to need to, be counting on those more centralized objectives. But yeah, trying to steal the your top left one is a really interesting kind of thing in this one. It does also lead you into giving your opponent those 2 points almost guaranteed as that shield comes onto the boards, unless you can clear them off really, really well, which might be another option too. Do I just send an absolute speedy blender up into that corner to try to explode that deployment and just try to really focus on doing that? So just that speed is weird and funky and a cool consideration.
A note too is sometimes maybe, we're going to look at the other missions too, but maybe it's worthwhile. Maybe putting stuff in the dagger isn't the right choice. Maybe you keep the cheaper units that are not going to be as impactful and you double down in shield and hammer. There's a lot of ways you can approach that, because maybe if you're a slower warband, okay, play that to your advantage, then go for the deployments that are going to get your models where they need to be, instead of counting on the models movement to do it.
Yep.
So
for sure.
Something to think about there.
Kyle, you got any juice for this one?
Oh yeah, because I've been the complete opposite thinking for you guys on this. So hear me out. I played this mission a bunch here, and I actually, because it came through this month, right? That kill secondary, in my opinion, is actually arguably more important than objectives, because if you get that kill turn 1, that's 2 points. Your opponent, because it's cumulative, must kill more than not only what you killed on turn 1, but also whatever you kill on turn 2. So they're fighting uphill the entire time when they're already behind because you have more kill points. So if you get a kill on turn 1, it's not unreasonable. You have 2, 4, 6, 8 points your opponent can't do anything about, right? Even if it starts on turn 2, that's 6 points, right? Then you look at the objective conditions, right? You get 1 point for 1, 1 point for 2, 1 point for more. So if you have 2 points and you get the kill, you have 4 points. And even if your opponent has the other 3, who cares? It's 4-3 every single round. And your opponent can't do anything unless he either takes a point away from you or kills something above what you have before. So that cumulative aspect really puts pressure on. I could focus on a kill mission here and just hold 2 points, and that's perfectly fine, right? Because even if your opponent gets 3 points and then gets the one that's worth more, you're tied at the worst. But odds are they're not going to have that extra point the first time you get ahead in terms of the kills. So this is where, like, I think a lot of people fall in the trap of saying, hey, I'm going to go rush into the middle. I'm going to cap all these points, spread out this cheap chaff all around, and I'm controlling all these points. And some guy comes in and says, all right, I've got 200 kill points. It's just equal to 2 of your points every single turn. I don't have to fight to get 3 points from you. I only have to fight to get 2 points from you. Maybe a third on occasion. If I'm behind at all, I'm going to get that extra point anyway. But don't underestimate how many points you can get from that kill secondary. This is especially important, as Rob brought up, that ranged can be a killer here, or any team that can alpha strike. If I got, an Arbalester in my hammer, right? I could blow someone apart across the board. Turn 1, 2 points for me. Let's go, right? And maybe I'm playing against OBR. You have a Morghast, flies across the board, gets an early kill and caps an objective. I'm immediately behind for the rest of this game. And sure, I get a point that counts as an extra point over in the corner. But at that point, your opponent doesn't even care, right? So I always say be careful of the brawl. Be careful of that, because if you get 2 behind in kill points, you're probably going to either be fighting an uphill battle or just going to straight up lose the game.
But it's and like you said though, Kyle, it's like, well, when do you? This is the interesting with all these catch up mechanics is deciding if you do want to take the lead or do you want to hedge a little bit, keep it tied. Maybe, this is a mission where I don't think letting your opponent intentionally falling behind, I don't think is particularly powerful. There's some missions when it gets kind of funky, but when you can get like wild dice and stuff like that. But with this one, I don't think in particular, you want to, but do you want to try to tie that first round so that they don't get, extra point pretty easily for the next round too? It's just something, again, another layer to think about, extra piece of it that is just kind of all of the nuance that comes into this. It's just wild how many different ideas and things that can kind of rattle off with them. You guys have anything else with this one?
No.
Cool. Rob, you got anything there? No? Okay. Wow, that's crazy. You didn't say anything. What's going on?
He's back. He's back.
I had it muted. Sorry, I had to take my dog out. No, it's like you said. There's a lot of variability. Range is definitely like a proactive thing. Speed's a proactive thing, and thinking about where not to lose your pieces. It's true. If you jump ahead, they get glittering points. They hold 3. They'll probably tie after round 2 is what it's going to most likely come down to. And then trying not to lose points and lose out there. I have noticed with these. I've noticed what's it called with these, that they catch up mechanics. Although 1 point's a little rough, stealing and exploding up from there can be huge here. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of variabilities. This can slip away from you fast if you're not careful enough, but you can also swing it if it's you have a good turn, you get a bigger kill. You put, they killed 3 skeletons for 24 wounds, but you killed a clawback for 35. You have to catch up now. It's crazy. I really like it.
It's a fun mission. I always enjoy playing it. It's good thinky expression of skill.
Crunchy. It's a crunchy game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, anything. This is from, and I guess we didn't mention this one. This was from the Ferocious Gnarlwood 2 pack. I don't know if we said it or not. But where everything has this kind of catch-up mechanic built in, and they're all very, very intentional missions. You have to really think about what you're doing in pretty much all of them, and really have a very intentional plan for what's happening there.
Yeah, you can't just autopilot this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to my mission. Let's do it.
Ooh, Kyle time.
All right, mission 4, Bloodshed. I'll start with the creator. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's Chris something. It's one of the 2. Chris. Okay, I'll make sure it was Chris. I didn't want to say the wrong one. Chris made this one. I'm actually a huge fan of this mission. Long story short, for this mission, it's a kill mission, and the way it works is essentially you just kill more points, the fighter's point value, than your opponent each round. So it's not cumulative like the last turn. In addition, in the center, if you have more fighters, so quantity, not quality in this case, within 5 inches of the center of the battlefield than your opponent,
huge.
you get an additional victory point, which is a huge radius. And the second part to note, it's not an objective. So there's no capping. You don't need to have more than your opponent. Just end of each round, whoever has more, no matter what. Also to note, you don't have to be wholly within. You could just be toe tapping that 5-inch mark, right? Battle ends after 4 rounds. This is the only mission that theoretically can go to 5 rounds. Because the 5th round will begin if there is a tie. If there is a tie at the end of the 5th, in that case, the winner will be determined by just total kill points in this case. No other things here. It's a great mission. You're just going to go slam into each other's faces. But really, one of the big things to note here, too, this is the first mission when you come out of your pod. So You're going to go into your pod. You're planning for these objectives. You're planning for these treasures, right? And you're going to come out of that pod and say, man, I've got the biggest, baddest horde on the planet. No one can deal with this horde. And then you go into this mission against a bunch of ogres and they're just slaughtering you in the center and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Not saying that totally happened to me from experience versus Skaven. Shout out to Gray. But yeah, that's what can happen, right? So if you plan for these first 3 missions so hard that you didn't plan for a kill mission, you're going to not have a good time here, right?
Surprise!
So while that 5-inch radius is big, you still got to kill. But I would scroll up to the deployments.
Whoa, there it is.
One thing to note, is there a chart underneath, by the way, with the points breakdowns?
Nope, we don't need
There's
it.
no points breakdowns in the semifinals.
So it's something else for everyone to note in this case then, right? Those points values matter less because it's semifinals into finals, right? We're not looking at those types of tiebreakers anymore. We're just looking, did you win or did you not? So points matter less here, just can you win it? But looking through again, we saw that dagger was off in the corner before. Now it's off to the edge, far edge, coming in round 2, right? So that first round, we're like, oh man, dagger, we want to brawl in the middle and put 4 guys here. We've now had 2 missions where it spawns out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, right? Hammer also comes in a far edge, but it's on the shorter side, so you can come into that middle section a lot easier than some of the other folks can. And then, of course, you have your shield, which is 3 inches up, which puts you, I believe, about 9 inches from the middle. So if you go up to 3, remember you have a 3-inch radius where you can deploy. So in reality, the farthest up from the edge of the board you can deploy will be about 6 inches. So that's something to consider, right? So if you're about 9 from the center, and then 6, you want to get down a little bit, you can kind of deploy right on the edge of that 5-inch range, right? And then kind of sneak your guys up if you want to play it safe. Or you could state, well, my shield opponent's going to come in there, and I don't want them getting there. And they launch a Varangard across the board straight into your face, so you can't even get to the center, right? And then they're just going to start dueling you in the face, right? So the first round can go a lot of different ways depending on what your opponent is. But really, it's this comes down to movement. You have so many people coming in round 2, and they're coming in on the far board edges everywhere, meaning that round 1, you're probably going to be sub deploying, going to go by fast. Round 2, your center may start fighting, but then everyone else is going to spend round 2 probably just moving in if you're not a fast warband, right? So you're really looking at a full battle happening in the middle, round 3 and round 4 in most cases.
Right.
So this, when you're designing your warband, designing your plan, you might have to think to yourself, A, am I fast enough to get there with my dagger and hammer that I could start brawling early and upset my opponent? Imagine you have a bunch of 5-move elves and your opponent's got a bunch of 3-inch move zombies. Zombies are never going to even get there to help. You could overwhelm something that's a lot bigger, right? Or you could say, hey, I'm going to put an alpha strike into my shield. Going to put that Morghast that's going to fly in there, going to kill turn 1 and just brawl for the rest of the turns. And I can get ahead so far than rounds 1 and 2 that by the time his horde comes in round 3 and 4 and I was going to lose, it doesn't matter anymore. So a lot of play into this mission, but at the same time, it's simple. You just got to kill stuff. Like if you can't kill stuff, this is a damage check, right? This is the boss in any raid where you go in and say, like, at the end of the day, I got to see how good my gear is, right? And this is it. So, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so kind of in a little bit opposite of that, honestly. This one, Salty did a really good breakdown of this after Adepticon, and just the way that, and I can't remember if the points end up running the exact same here or not, but this center control point is super powerful. If you can control that center all 4 rounds, that's 4 points. Yeah. If your opponent can then, if you can steal 1 kill round, you're at 6 points to 6 points essentially, right? If you're assuming your opponent gets assuming your opponent can get the other 3 kill rounds, with this first point here, killed more points than your opponent in this battle round. When I played this mission at Adepticon, I brought Cruel Boys Monster Killers and I brought range. I brought my harpoon because I was like, if I can snipe a kill in this very first round, it is super, 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 super powerful because I can just steal that 2 points in a lot of mission or a lot of matchup might not have any interaction that round. So that first round kill point, you're all kind of getting in position and stuff like that. So being able to fire off a really strong, powerful killing. I mean, that's the most important part. Killing ranged attack can really, really swing this mission here. I got more thoughts on it, but I don't want to steal everybody's points on it. So I'll swing it over to Pete.
So I'm waiting for Rob to bring up Resurrection, so we'll wait on that one.
Yeah, right.
What occurs to me with this, right, is again, alpha striking turn 1 is huge as far as points potential. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of other missions you can kind of set up to assassinate deployments round 2. You can't really do that with this one because if you look, they're not coming in one spot. They have the entire edge of that board to pop out. Because oftentimes I'd be thinking, okay, I'm going to tuck a major piece of my hammer in the corner and shoot up at that dagger, right, if I'm playing red. That doesn't really work here. So it's beautiful in the fact that the incentive is get in the middle. That's where you belong, right? But your shield is so important this mission because any gains you get early on, it's your opponent is now fighting to try to catch up.
Yeah,
Vice versa, Pete, by the way. Like, you can't ambush their deployment, but you could ambush their round 1 deployment in the opposite effect because you're coming in right behind them. So if he wants to stay there with his shield and not move anywhere, your hammer is going to slam right into him.
Mm-hmm. Talking about hammers again, right? Even in this case with hammer coming in round 2, hammer is primed to take advantage if your opponent misses something. Rob.
Yeah, obligatory res cheats the game again. Takes it out for this. So thanks. If you play anything with res, you might get punched in the chest. Just saying. You
can see he's looking at me through the camera, by the way.
Can't guarantee it. Nah, dude, play it. It's strong, dude. It's a strong mechanic here, right? You need a dice for it, and it's guaranteeing that you're using that to make a res, so you have to kill 2 to 1, right? It's tough. Agreed, Peter. Alpha striking here is really good, but I'm going to bring up another point. It's friends helping friends here. How I played this on Adepticon, I played Cities of Sigmar, and my dagger, which was my horse, my flag, and the dude, came in with my hammer that was like 2 dudes.
You all know the classic Cities of Sigmar model, the dude, right? You know what we're talking about.
And the horse.
Yeah, there's horse daddy.
I got all right. Profile. Just run it back for me. It's just
all right, my bad. So field marshal, I had a field marshal on a horse, I had a steel helm, and I had a great herald with a flag, right? And then I had a rune father from Vulcan Flameseeker who is not affected by anything that we do, and I had a war surgeon and another steel helm. Pretty much what I did is I set up my dagger and my hammer really up close to the corner with each other, so I can guarantee that my flag goes, I'm going to go move, and then pull everybody right off the edge and get them faster slung into the middle. So it just happens that it flings the horse 9 inches. The horse is already there just to go and assassinate a heart eater. Shout out to Salt Daddy Chris Hyde, who's an amazing opponent on this. It was a really fun mission with him. It was like a big bloodbath. And what's cool is, like, yeah, you have that that I can spread out and scatter. That 5 inches is a big scatter point. But if you're coming in on an aggressive front, like hammer and dagger, either ambushing from behind or on an angle and behind, it's really hard to keep that spread out there. And then once you lock them down in there and you're dancing and getting kills in the center, that's when it gets a little bit harder. Numbers, really good here. You can stay alive if you get that.
Before you continue on, the friends helping friends, like, the one thing you didn't note on this is this mission makes those aura abilities so much more powerful.
Yeah.
When everyone's stuck in the middle, if the opponent's playing, for example, Avastus, which has a 6-inch aura for -1 attacks, it could stand in the dead center of this board and give a -1 attack aura to your entire team if they're trying to be within that 5 inches.
All right, it's
So,
risk
like, it's
reward here too.
exponentially better, right?
Also, you could just have range, like Mike was talking about, and just shoot things. But utilizing your setup on these long board edges to, like, log in. Oh, okay, I have a Ardboy boss, and I'm bringing in some Cruel Boys, or I'm bringing in some Monster Killers, or whatever I'm bringing. Let's prioritize having a wild die here so we can just log in and get everything scooted right away to the middle so we can start competing for points and not fall behind. Meanwhile, there's also going to be terrain. That dagger on the other side might be having a slower time. It's more consideration for speed, right? Like that's the current like reoccurrent theme is speed is really good in all these. Having the ability to reach out and touch, so projection, whether in form of range or in form of like alpha pin or alpha strike, without offering up the model as points, because you can get punished for that play style.
Sure.
You know, all they have to do is just roll a couple sixes, and all of a sudden your 400 IQ stop you from coming in. They just pick up an easy point, and then they just roll forward and get another easy point. So it's you gotta be careful and kind of play according to what your opponent has, but definitely synergistic. And anything that forces you to fight localized, like Kyle said, using auras or stackable buffs or anything like that is like really paramount to try and getting in there. That's it.
Yeah,
Simple.
it's fun to play. It's because
it is fun to play.
It's simple to look at and it's simple to understand.
Yep.
But once the pieces hit the board, everything completely changes. The terrain can completely alter what's happening in this mission, right? Where you deploy, because like you think about like the order of deployment in that second round, who's putting down first, where is it going to go, all that kind of stuff, right? Like if somebody puts it nearer to you, maybe you completely change your strategy. You go, oh, actually, I want to kill them right now. Let's make this fight not happen in the middle. So yeah, there's just so much. It's a great mission to test how good you are at reacting to board state, I think. And not being set in your mindset about this is how I'm going to play this mission. This is how I'm going to win this mission. Because if you catch that punch in the mouth, what is your plan? You got to be able to adapt on the fly.
Just kill him.
Yeah,
Just kill him.
Just kill them.
That's why it's bloodshed. It's great.
They can't score points if they're not on the board.
Right.
Thing is, it's such a war cry mission. I feel like this is like what when people.
Thanks for that great analysis. This is a war cry.
Is that what we're playing? I thought this was the kill team. What am I doing?
This is the most John Madden comment of the night. This is a great war team mission right here, kids.
I know what you're talking about, man. I agree.
Follow me here. Yeah, you know what.
No, you're right, Peter. You're absolutely right.
When I think of Warcry and when the new guy starts playing the game, this is what Reaper wishes it was. Mm-hmm. Because for the first year and a half, second edition, Reaper. I hate that mission. I hate that mission so much. But this is a great mission. I love it. It creates incentive of just get in there, roll some dice, remove some models, have a good time. But there's layers to it, just like Warcry. Right.
It's Reaper with promoting interactivity, essentially, right? You're saying you have to interact with your opponent. You can't just try to snipe a kill and then steal points for this round. You can, but there's also other things that matter that are going on. So, you can't just win by doing that. I guess technically you still can, but your models are gonna die too. So
I mean, just like you win this mission here and you're going into that final round a winner, and like it's gonna feel good. It's get your blood pumping. That's why it's called bloodshed.
Right? Any last thoughts on it before we get to everybody's last mission of the day? This is for all the marbles. Once you're in whatever pool you're in, this is the mission that you're going to be playing. This is going to be for your first place in your bracket. It's going to be for your third place in your bracket.
Who made this mission? Some guy, right?
Some idiot, some moron thought he knew what he was doing. No, this is a mission that I made.
Hear me out. This is a great Warcry mission.
This is a Warcry mission. It is a Warcry mission.
Mike's taking credit. Rob's like, hold on. Yeah, Mike made this mission. We've been playing this mission a lot, so big shout out to him. It's just if you play it once, you'll understand what we're talking about. It's just it makes you think in a ton of different ways, but it just feels so balanced every time you play it. It feels really good.
It actually, so I spent a ton of time working on this. I had this idea of things that move an objective that is not stagnant in the game. So actually, it looks like he changed it. I think he added maybe he did something different with it. But essentially, the whole purpose of this is that you're it's called hit and run because you're fighting, you're trying to kill stuff, but you're also moving around as objectives move around. So basically each round, one objective is going to be active. You're not able to future cap in this one. So like normally like in ley lines and stuff like that, just because an objective is not active, you can still cap it, you can still control it and all that kind of stuff. But in this one, you can only ever control the objective that is live for that round. The way that that's going to be determined is we're going to roll off at the start of the game. And then whoever wins the roll off is going to pick the first mission or the first objective that's going to be active in round one. So say Kyle and I are playing against each other. He picks this top objective right here. Nope, you can't see my mouse. Cool. that's helpful.
The one
He picks
between
the
the
very
two
top
Ds.
objective.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The
Kyle
double
says, "Let
Ds,
me get
yeah.
right between those Ds." He's and so Kyle got to choose the first objective. So then I get to choose which direction we're going to rotate each round. So is it going to go clockwise or is it going to go counterclockwise? The deployments here are, this is the only mission that kind of has this. We have a lot of board edge in the game. This mission has C deployments is kind of the easiest way to think about it. So you see the shields coming on round 2 in this one. They're coming on that short edge on either side. They can also, if you look on the top and the bottom, deploy all the way up to 3 inches from the center line of that long edge of the board too. So you have a ton of flexibility about where you're going to come in round 2. The idea of that is to make it so that the rotation in the first round objective doesn't really impact. You're not super hamstrung if you don't get it to go your way, essentially. And if you notice, this is a little different because this is not a completely symmetrical deployment. Depending on if you are red or if you are blue, you will actually have a different board state to start. It is essentially symmetrical, but it is explicitly not completely identical. It may matter with terrain and stuff like that. This is where terrain can actually play a bit more of an important role in the way that you're going to play this mission out. So, but essentially, like I said, you're going to score points from each round, the objective that's active. Whoever controls that at the end of the round, I don't know what he did for points on this. Did he go for two points for this one? Cool. And then and it's essentially Reaper as a subcategory. Peter, as much as I agree with you that I hate Reaper as a mission, I love it as a second layer of a mission because it adds something that like lets you do 2 things, right? It's hard when it's one thing, but so yeah, just kill them all.
Yeah, kill the most. It's not points dependent too. Something to note here.
Oh,
okay. Total number of enemy fighters, right?
Got it.
It's not my mission anymore.
So I mean, that matters though, right? Because if I'm a horde, he has more targets to kill, right? If I'm going up against a warband that's got 6 models, I can kill 1 a turn, maybe. Like, sure, if I do that, I can get 1 kill, but he's probably going to get 2. I might need to focus on the objective game, but sorry.
Mike, your dream
sure.
of and realizing a horde, elite nation is coming true.
I don't think that's how I wrote it originally. I don't know if he changed that part of it. I thought it was points. Usually I do points based because it's Reaper based.
It's Reaper.
Yeah,
well, that's it. We just might want to change the wording here and talk to him to make sure that's clear. Because right now the way it reads, it's the number of models, not the points of models.
I agree. Yeah, no, and the intent is normally Reaper. So, but again, this is why it's important to read the pack because it might be a mission that you invented and it doesn't look the way that you invented it. So, have done a lot of good amount of testing. Thank you for everybody who stuck with it when we ran it in TTS League. Shout out TTS League. I know we talked about it a little bit, but come join us, come play games with us, get competitive, get casual. It's a super awesome community. Everybody there rocks. It's a guaranteed game or 2 every single week. Also, I'll chuck a little thing in here. We don't run it, but there's also a narrative league that is started.
Yeah.
They're a super awesome crew. They play 2-month-long leagues, and then they kind of reset everything and uses all the narrative rules and stuff like that. Come play with us. Come join the Discord. There's so many cool people, and there's so much fun to be had. And you can just, if you're nerds like us, want to talk about Warcry, even like the crunchy stuff like we're going into today, or just the more fluffy stuff where it's all there. Everything, modeling, gameplay, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so everybody on TTS, we played a bunch of games with it, and with those first 2 things, with the objective and then the kills being worth the same, there ended up being a lot of ties. So kind of similar to Bloodshed, I added this recently that I think is designed to at least have another layer of granularity for point scoring. And it's everybody in the within 3 inches of the center of the board, the most wounds remaining. So whoever has the most wounds remaining within 3 inches of not wholly within, but 3 inches within the center of the board gets an extra point each round. So what that does is it incentivizes fighting. So I might be fighting against like a tyrant, 42 wounds. He's out there. I hit him with my ghoul and do 3 damage to him. It matters. That counts. That decreases my opponent's total. So you don't have to kill them for that part. You just have to do damage to them. And whoever has the most wounds there gets that point. So absurdly, I haven't played this a ton. I know you guys, I think all of you have played this more than me, even though I came up with it. But let's go down like we did before. Pete, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's so funny because the first time I played this was against Rob, who was playing Castellites cities. and his
That's
game
the lights.
as a first introduction to the game. It was like, oh, by the way, my Bannerman's going to move the entire warband to the next point for a triple, and then they're all going to do their thing. It was a rough first time playing it, but each time I play it since then, it's been I get a little more in love with it, to be perfectly honest, because it's like Ring Around the Rosie, but you're all just murdering each other, and
so it's regular Ring Around the Rosie. I don't know what school you went to.
Right,
it's the same.
Right. The typical. But it's interesting, right? So the biggest thing here, again, the shield, you look at the deployment, because at first glance, you're like, ooh, not great for shield. It could create, bad feels, bad game. But the deployment being as wide as it is really helps you get them in action. That extra twist there of being 3 inches of the center is going to be a big thing there as well. Because again, it incentivizes you to get in the middle, because you're going to be able to get to the objective each round if you're in the center. Anyway.
Also, no capping dormant objectives, I think, is like the biggest thing. Sorry, I had to just chime in.
No, that is huge though, because we've played it before where that wasn't the case, and that was kind of part of the pregame. Is you're watching that clock tick around, you're trying to set yourself up for future rounds, where you're not going to have that in this one.
You can still do it, but you can't control it, right? It matters a lot more what happens in that round as opposed to as much. Like, you still want to have the models there, right? But you can't force the flip in that sense, right? It's still raw. Whoever's got the most models gets it.
Right. Yeah, because the thing I think about is, okay, really cheap units that don't want to be in combat, that's what they're doing. They're trying to scoot around and get themselves set up while not getting murdered by what's going on in the center of the board.
It's a good one. Rob, you done, Pete, or is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
It is a mission I've fawned over. It is my primary testing mission. We've played it in our local, and I'll double back on what I mean by that. We've played it in our local game store tournaments now. People love it. It's dynamic. It's fun. It incentivizes a very wide variety of build options for warbands. It rewards killing. It rewards positioning. It rewards being intelligent. If you just bum rush everybody to a point and then can't pivot, or you get wiped, like, you're going to lose. You have to think about what you want and how you want to pick apart. I think it's really good. It's just such a fun mission. If you've never played it before, rack it up, play it. It's a little bit to read through. It's a little bit of a Yu-Gi-Oh card, but once you get it, it's really good. It's really well worth it. And I've watched the evolution of this, of like the deployments, of the additional like rules added. I've watched the evolution. I've been there every step of the way, watching you implement this. I don't think you intended. I knew you intended to make a good mission. I don't think you intended to hit something this good, because it's as good as like Elkin can get.
That's what I was going for. I went for perfection. I was like, this is my first mission I've ever come up with. That's fine. No.
He just finished spraying spray paint in the small enclosed room, and he's like, "Yeah, I got an idea for a mission."
It's just like an oracle back in the Greek tension. It's come to me.
You're just like huffing glue, the gorilla glue, using my clippers to get it out. So it's so one of the biggest things. I think I've put at least 20 reps into this mission alone, which is kind of like absurd. This one and like Lightning Raid for some reason are just like two of my favorite. I like the fact that this tests your ability to pivot. So you could win a fight and not be able to pivot to get that center point, or not be able to pivot to get the other point. And as the rounds go on, it gets further away from you the further you press up to take a point. Also, placing your point. Where do you want to play? Where do you want to place it? Where do you want to rotate it to? There's so many options here, and it factors that games rarely play the same. And it's pretty excellent depending on the warband. Not back capping and setting up just kind of doesn't mean you're just, oh, okay, I hope you can get there now. Like, it's not an auto loss, feels bad for that. I had to come around to this. I really wasn't a big fan initially of it, but I think the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like it. That if you do decide to deploy 2 on the top of the sea and 1 on the bottom of the sea, So be like, okay, that last round when it swings all the way back here, I can be here to cap that and have a body already present and be able to stop or whatever it might be. Now, instead of it just being like, I'm just going to put guys there, you could take this point and I'll just see you in a couple turns and I win this point. And then it makes it way more dynamic. I really had to come around to it, I will admit. But again, we see hammer, we see dagger, we see shield. Shield can get right in the fray or it can go right behind. Rarely have I ever deployed behind east and west. I think it's only happened a few times when I needed like absolute body there for something. But I have ways to get engaged right away, and I have ways to set up for the future. Hammer and dagger, again, you're seeing this trend. This is the third mission now where hammer is. Second mission for dagger, and then there's 2 missions for shield. So we're pretty evenly deployed across the entire map pack or mission pack, which is really nice because now you have to think I can't just front load hammer because there are 2 missions hammer's not coming in, and how's my hammer going to look if it doesn't come in? Or if I do want to front load it, what happens when I have those pieces that don't come in? How does the rest of my warband look? So now you have to build not a take all comers list, but you have to build a very balanced and diverse list that's going to be able to play the way you want it to play, pivot, have killing power, or be designed to take objectives and hold anything else out. Again, speed, range projection, or melee projection, being able to come through speed is paramount. Again, that seems to be the reoccurring thing we're seeing here. So take
It's
that as
all
what
of
you
them,
may.
right? We keep seeing speed. We keep seeing needing to fight. We keep seeing the control service. Like do everything Warcry does the best all the time.
This is the 5th Warcry mission in the map pack, so you're going to be Warcry.
That's it. I'm glad you picked up on that. I noticed that as well. It seems like all the missions Justin chose are for Warcry, and they are Warcry missions, which is I'm excited because like that's kind of the reason why I'm going is to do a Warcry tournament. So I'm stoked that he decided to pick 5 Warcry missions to play.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative picking from the General's Handbook for AOS. So, honestly, dude, this is when he first brought it up for us to come in, I was like, we're ending it on a hit and run. It's the most fun mission to watch people play because it's not just I keep my models here and that's it. No, you have to move. You have to move or you lose. This is also sick for things like Sybarites that just have speed and fighting power baked in. And then little bodies to kind of move and trip up along the way. This is really sick for anything like OBR that wants to be degenerate and have moves. Charges are great here. Movement balancing, Castellite host looks good here. There's so many things here that you can play on this and have a great time and be like, yeah, man, I'm really doing well here. Very few things are not able to keep up or play in this mission. That's me though. I'm done.
So nothing else.
Done honking
so brief.
I think he's got another 10 minutes to go on his rant here.
Hey, guess what?
This is Rob's death, though. Rob does love this mission the way that you love death.
Yeah, you know what?
But I think I'm up to talk about this mission. So one thing to note, we talked in round 1 how shield can kind of scatter and hit all those points. Ironically, it works just as well in this mission. So one thing I see a lot of people make mistakes on in this mission is that shield, as you said, is that C formation. You don't have to deploy in a clump. You could deploy 2 on the bottom, 2 on top if you wanted to do that. Which gets to my next point of this mission rewards players who are not thinking in the now, but think of what the next turn is going to be. If you think, okay, this turn I need to get a kill and I need to get that objective, you're probably already behind. You need to be stating, all right, not only do I need to figure out what I'm doing this turn, I need to make sure that whatever that is benefits me the most to start my next turn, regardless of initiative. So that's where this ends up getting really, really complicated and where it forces fights a lot because if you have a slower warband, for example, and you're trying to position yourself on an objective, you're going to end up trying to push yourself either towards the middle or kind of towards where the next objective is rotating. But your opponents are going to be there, right? Because they're going to want to go the same way. So you're not going to have free reign just to sit on those, crunchy points and just kind of spin to the next thing. You're stuck having to fight. But this mission also rewards larger models because if you have an oblong base, it is possible to sit on 2 of the points at the same time. So really, when you're thinking of your warband, like, what do I want to bring? Like, what do I want to do? You could come in here and say, I'm going to plan for all these objective missions the first 3 rounds. It might mess you up on round 4, but you might come into round 5 and say, hey, 4 out of 5 of my missions are going to be somewhat objective heavy. So these numbers are going to help me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But having played this a lot, and to Rob's point, I've played a lot of death. Those numbers have also been the bane of my existence on this mission. That secondary counting the same amount of points as objectives really, really ends up pushing you back, because you're like, oh, I'm always going to get the objective, but it's only worth 2 points every round, right? Your opponent's always going to get the kill, which is worth 2 points every round. So to what Mike was saying earlier, it ends up in a lot of ties. So now to fix that, we have to now focus on the centerpiece, which is going to force everyone to brawl. So do I want to bring that horde to guarantee each point each round? Or do I want to go and state, all right, maybe I want something a little bit more neutral. I can do both. So a lot to think about in this mission, but really play this 1 or 2 times and you'll see what we're trying to state about. Don't think about the now, think about what's going to happen the next turn, and really makes it, as Rob was saying, a pleasure to watch someone play this, because there are so many options for you to take. But that's it.
With that center point too, I think there's a potential for kind of a hokey pokey kind of vibe to it, with like hordes and stuff like that, where like I'm waiting until all my opponent's big stuff is gone that's close to the middle. Okay, we're all moving in. All right, now I go early. Let's see if I can move everything back out of the way potentially, right? So I kind of, again, it's just really, really meant to be dynamic, and a lot of different moving pieces that like you really have to think about overall.
Yeah, any team that brings a free move ability on the board,
Mhm.
so just from Death, Flesh Eater Quartz, they've got abilities that can do that. RBF has got a way to do it. Royal Beast Flayers, sorry for the acronym. The Ossier Bone Reapers can do that. But then even look at other ones, right? Wildercorp, free moves. Maybe you're just saying, like, I really, really like playing Dispossessed. They don't got free moves, but they could just ally in a Soulsworn to get that free move to pivot. So something to consider when you're
They
list
get free moves. They just really pay for them because they're helping. Yeah, they're like, please, with my dying breath, move to that objective, my brother.
Get out! My last grudge is I don't want to see your face.
Help! He passed on my body. You guys got anything else for this one, though?
No.
All right. I'm gonna. So let's just run through kind of like a general, like, what you're seeing for this one, and maybe more of like what, just a general kind of stuff you see for packs. I mean, for this one, what I'm super stoked about for this pack in particular is something that every single mission feels like it's so dynamic, and it feels like you really have to, it's going to test player skill really, really significantly, because they're very, very changey missions, a lot of different things, moving parts and all that kind of stuff. But looking at the deployments, we kind of got the breakdown on them. Hammer seems like important to have some hitty stuff in it, but I think this is my approach when I build a pack. Honestly, I've probably got the most out there one out of the 4 of us, but oftentimes I'm pretty decided on what I'm bringing to a tournament beforehand, because I love the proxy game so much. I usually have such a heavily themed warband. Adepticon, I did the Ninja Turtles. That was determined well before we knew what any of the missions were.
That was months beforehand.
Exactly.
You're like, I'm just gonna wear a leotard.
Yep.
Like, problem solved.
Right. But
leotard where I think he sweat out about 16 gallons of water.
Yo,
he
if anybody wants to have a sweat off,
it was pretty bad.
I promise, I got you beat. But for so doing that, because I'm kind of usually locked into, I'm gonna try to build essentially kind of a sort of take all comers list, but it's going to be a warband that's pretty locked in beforehand. I know what the models are going to be. I know what the profiles are going to be for the most part. There's some flexibility because there's proxies that I can say whatever I want them to be as long as they're similar base size. But with that, I try to maximize what the list is going to be, make it as strong as I can. So it's not just a cobbled together group of models that have no synergy, no idea behind it. It's a list that has an intent. But then I really customize that list to the battle pack. So for me, I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, it seems like Hammer really needs to hit hard a lot of the time. That's where I want to put my smash ear pieces. Dagger also might need to have some movement going on in it. So maybe I want more mobile pieces coming in there as well. So, that's just, I take kind of a, what is that? I guess that's kind of a bottom up approach where I start with a pretty locked in warband, and then I customize it into the pack. Pete, how do you normally approach like what you're doing once you've kind of seen this pack and know what it's going to be?
To be honest, it changes. Usually I have an idea of what I want to bring. What the biggest thing that changes is what are the deployments and how am I dividing up that warband. And that's usually how I change things up, because I usually get in my head, okay, this is what I want to play. And sometimes that bites me. Adepticon's a prime example. I did not build to the pack and I suffered for it, right? So there's something to be said that you got to keep that in mind, right? Like, end of the day, play what you want to play, right? But you can make up for a lot of that in how you're building your deployments.
For sure.
I typically have a pretty good idea of what I want to play and then kind of work it from there. Now, Nova Open, I actually have absolutely no idea what I'm going to bring, which is a little upsetting for me because typically I've already put that to bed. So
yeah, just anybody who's coming, know that Peter's bringing gits. I think that's fair to.
it's hard to say. I don't know what I'm bringing. I really don't.
Your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to bring both a 5'10" and 4'8" profile to complete your to merge everything that you love.
Pretty much.
That's honestly, if you could do it, it's gonna be sick. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. That's pretty. There's nothing wrong about that too. Like, I always kid and bust Peter's balls about like oh, which 4'8" profile am I playing today? But like, it's very valid and it's very powerful. And it's
turns out they work real well.
It tends if you hit things really hard, they die. So I mean, sometimes I get like too caught being too cute with too many abilities, but really
Rob gets that a lot. Approach. People tell him, he goes, "You are being too cute." There.
But yeah, tricks with punching power. That's my go-to. So yeah, no.
It's good, Peter. Peter, good list builder. I'm excited to see what you're going to be thinking up.
What about you, Rob?
I'm a prep maniac. I love thinking about the minutia of everything, about measuring out every distance to objectives from every deployment because I hate myself. And you know, I'm the guy from the Da Vinci Code who like whips himself and then he goes and chases people. That was that was my dad. But there's pretty much how I look at it is I look at it and see what's good, and then I kind of anticipate what people are going to bring. Then I say what pieces can counteract or combat that and give me the advantage on these missions against those things. Since there is really no set meta, since we had a huge shakeup and points changes and adjustments and seeing some things, we can kind of bank on like what's going to be good, like a couple things, and kind of build to combat it. But I think at this point, it's like looking to see what do I need each one of my deployments to do consistently on each one of these missions and kind of build around that and then kind of find the tools and pieces. I am stuck between I'm always stuck between do I want to play for super fun and play some cool models and have a good time and high five dudes and roll some dice, or do I really want to just sit there and pummel down and pummel out? But I think like a lot of it comes. What's up?
High five their face.
Yeah. I mean, like, but that's how I built Hrothgorn last Nova was, the meta was a lot of M3 stuff. So I was like, well, I'll just counter it with a shotgun blast because nobody's doing that. And it worked. It worked really well, actually. That was the thing. And same thing with Adepticon. Is like, well, it's a really crazy map pack. I'm just gonna play cities and just be able to adjust and move where I want to go. And people are not going to answer a free 9-inch move horse on the run when I just jam it in their face and just swing dice hitting on 3s. Typically, it's really just it's going to come down to pieces I pick and then kind of just building up from there. And that's kind of part of the pleasure for me, though. Kyle, what are you going to do?
Look, I'm not there to have fun. I'm there to make my opponent miserable. Not
he says joking in all seriousness.
I say that because I play tested like my Adepticon list against Rob for about a month, and it's just it was oppressive. Just the way the list was designed. It was meant to be that way. But well, like when I approach the pack, I kind of approach it a couple different ways. One, if there's data available, I do want to look at the meta, and the reason I say that is like, for example, for Soulblight, I was favoring skeletons over zombies because I like the T4 over the 10 wounds. But with the Slant Starmaster being so popular right now, 8 wounds could be a liability, right? So 10 wounds is better. So knowing the meta can like really help me pick what I want to pick and play around it. Because nothing's going to feel worse than you bring in your team and then you're saying, oh man, I got all these 8 wound profiles, and then you just run into Slant Starmaster after Slant Starmaster after Slant Starmaster, and you're not gonna have a great time, right? Like, so like that's like one of the first things I'm gonna look at. But I'll be honest, I tend to look at how can I skew these missions as much as possible in my favor. So, for example, I talked a lot about like reason I play a lot of horde missions. We look at control matchups, like the first 3 rounds we're going to have. We have a objective treasure, we have an objective, and we have an objective. Horde looks pretty good, right? And if my goal is to get to the last round, and sure, I know my round 4 is going to be rough, it's a kill mission, but if I'm spiking those first 3 missions, at least I'm guaranteeing myself to get to that semifinal, right? So I might say, I'll take the risk in round 4. Odds are I might go up against an elite warband. I don't know. But if I could try to spike it early, let's go for it, right? So I'll probably look to try to skew that in some way. But at the end of the day, the one thing I'm going to think to myself is, do I want to bring a competitive list and lose? Or do I want to bring a list that I really like and lose? Because you can't guarantee to win at the end of the day. But what you can guarantee is, can you have fun, right? So sure, I can bring the sweatiest possible list on the planet, but if I'm not enjoying playing it, I'm not going to bring it. Like I'm going to bring the thing I find that's just way more fun to bring to the table, run it, even if it's a little bit subpar in my mind or something like that. And that's why, like, even for me, like maybe I'll roll it back. I brought RBF last year, maybe I'll bring him again. Horde Warband got maneuverability. It's not a bad amount of criteria, but that's kind of my logic. How can I skew this the most in my favor for the most amount of missions? If I'm skewed for 4 out of 5, it's good for me. But that's about it.
You got to win games. You got to outplay people sometimes, right? So yeah, sometimes you just got to roll dice and try to beat the guy on the other side of the table. Cool.
Yeah.
Any last words? Come play with us. Come join up for Nova if you can. We'd love to see everybody there. You'll know what we look like. We'll be wearing stupid jerseys and I'll be dressed like an a-hole. So I don't know what yet, but I will look like a moron.
I didn't even like factor that reasoning. Like it's
That'd be great.
Well, if there's other stuff that you do to like when you're prepping or like looking at missions and stuff like that, how do you prepare for them? Let us know too, because like again, we love talking about this because obviously we have 4 very different perspectives about like how we approach this stuff, and it's just cool to get those different insights because it just makes you a better player, makes you better at the game. The more diverse understanding you have of it. So yeah, throw something down in the comments and let us know if you're coming for sure. Please come see us. Rob, you want to take us out?
Yeah, having some good time, throwing some dudes and stuff. Good size, Listen, please join us on our journey. We're going to have another episode in July, probably discussing more Nova Prep Tourney, running through lists, our reasoning. Please comment, come join us. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the bell, high five my dad. Please do all these things. We do it because we love it. We do it to engage you guys. We do it because this community is one of the best communities out of any game I've ever played in anything ever. Surprisingly, it is better than the League of Legends community. It's a
no way.
No, I mean that's not even a bar. That's a coin on the ground you can step over.
Do they play Warcry missions in League of Legends? We don't know if they might succeed. That might be the problem they're missing. They might be missing out.
But for sure, guys, come check us out next time. Check out other basic blasters. We're going to leave links for Nova GT. Sign up. Have a good time. Bring some friends. Sign up in teams so we can all say, you beat 3H1C. Do that. Come on. Let's have some fun and have a good night, guys. Be safe.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.